It's better than cocaine. Take it all in.
Hey movie junkies, welcome back to Twin Flicks, where we always hear Southern magic of movies and most importantly, physical media with you. Now back in 2012, Second Sight released Southern Comfort, and while I never owned that Blu-ray, all legitimate reports said that it was very lackluster, very shady kind of HD transfer that looked muddy, dark. It even had the wrong ratio framed at 178:1 instead of 185:1. And in 2014, Shaft Factory released this Blu-ray, sourced from the same HD transfer the Second Sight used. Now about this HD transfer, the only report I found was that the HD transfer used for both the Second Sight and Shaft Factory's Blu-rays was from an old and outdated scan, and not from the camera negative or interpositive. Now 10 years later, Vinegar Syndrome steps into the ring and says, "Hold my beer," with their 4K UHD presentation. Now Southern Comfort was shot on 35mm film, and it only would make sense to restore the film from its original camera negative. Unfortunately, as Vinegar Syndrome reported, that they and their partners were unable to locate the 35mm negative, and unfortunately it was deemed to have been destroyed. So the next best solution is to use the 35mm interpositive print that was recently created for a theatrical re-release that was approved by Walter Hill to ensure the film's preservation. And of course, while it would have been more ideal to use the original camera negative, however, using the 35mm interpositive is also not a bad choice, and it was the best possible option that they had. And it also offered two benefits. Using the interpositive offered the original theatrical color design from Walter Hill's specifications, and second, the image was already cleaned up. But don't think this was an easy task to restore to 4K. If you've watched this video here from Vinegar Syndrome on YouTube, then you know that this new 4K scan still had a lot of man hours behind it to fix any issues the interpositive had, and to bring the transfer up to date in 4K. So Southern Comfort comes at us with a new 4K scan from the 35mm interpositive, forming a new native 4K DI with HDR10 grading, no Dolby Vision on this one, and reframed to its theatrically appropriate ratio of 185:1. Going to want to stay tuned after the review for a much closer look inside this limited edition box set. It has some very cool exclusive artwork, and also I'm going to do a rundown of all the new special features because this thing is fully loaded. Alright, so let's dive into the world of Walter Hill and take a closer look at Vinegar Syndrome's 4K UHD release against Shaft Factory's Blu-ray. Now, Vinegar Syndrome has become my go-to label for 4K releases. You can always be 100% confident, guaranteed that their 4K releases are going to be terrific. And this is absolutely no exception here. This is a constant, jaw-dropping presentation with a beautiful 4K scan. The color reproduction on this 4K is just outstanding and vastly improved upon, with the HDR10 only used to enhance what's already there by opening up the color gamut much wider now. As you can see here between the two formats, the 4K is obviously brighter and more natural looking. Say goodbye to that muddy, dark HD transfer from the previous Blu-rays. Now we can actually see people's faces, weapons, and details, and even some colors that were otherwise engulfed. Now, the film was shot during the winter months and in the middle of the Louisiana swamp, and the film relies heavily on natural earthy tones with lots of greens and browns, constant gray skies, muddy brown locations, and also drab costumes. The film was never designed to have vibrant, warm colors. This 4K, along with the HDR10, completely remains faithful to Walter Hill's and his DP's original color design. And while the colors don't carry a lot of pop and warmth and vibrancy to them, the color palette still carries a very nice variety of colorful imagery. The 4K with the HDR grading is right on point, giving plenty of attention to primaries. But it's really with the deeper crimson blood reds that does get some nice pop and detail. Also, all the different shades and tones of greens from trees, plants, moss, and the swamp now carries fuller greens throughout that look much more appropriate, and these are the major two standouts within the color palette. Saturation is also on point here. However, I did notice early on in the presentation that the saturation is pushed just a little too far that looked overly hot. For example, with the opening 20th Century Fox logo at the start, and also with skin tones can look a little tad too red in a few shots. Again, this happens very early on in the film, and then it balances itself out. It's definitely not a deal breaker. Contrast is also dialed in just right and accurate, giving some needed natural brightness to the image, which really opens up all the cold daylight scenes, giving truer lifelike appearance. And it helps tremendously here with fog and rain-drenched scenes. This is just a gorgeous and impressive video presentation with outstanding HDR grading and the 4K color reproduction than I've ever seen the film look before. Again, it's an impressive improvement over the Blu-ray. Now, black levels were a huge problem with the Blu-ray, carrying very crushed blacks throughout. I mean, just look at these images here that I pulled between the 4K and the Blu-ray. On the Blu-ray, especially at night, look how heavy the crush is. It swallows up faces, details, colors, and also daylight scenes aren't much better, looking very dark and murky. It was just a mess and looked very drabby and depressing. This 4K scan from the 35mm Interpositive has greatly improved the image quality here. Black levels are just outstanding, carrying truer, deeper, solid blacks that are handled perfectly, and also richer shadows that penetrates into the screen. This not only helps draw out much more information in the image, drawing out a fantastic amount of depth, detail, and image in the frame. The 4K image is consistently clear and sharp, or as sharp as the lenses could get. The overall level of fine detail is remarkable. Even though it's definitely not as good as it could have been using the original negative, it's still as sharp and clear as it could possibly be, from finer details and facial close-ups revealing lines, wrinkles, beads of sweat, dried on dirt and blood, raindrops on the faces and their clothing. You can pick out individual raindrops falling. It's fantastic. And not just with the raindrops. You can pick up every detail from tree bark to dirt to the elements in a dirty, muddy swamp, from little strands of moss hair, from leaves on trees, more texture and detail to weapons, from the machine guns and knives that has some nice sheen to it. And at the ending, while they're inside the Cajun community, it is just littered with all types of details in the background and the foreground. From the detail of wood used for the fire, inside the cabin itself, we can see all the grain in the wood and all the debris on the floor and patterns and textures of walls. The Blu-ray never picked any of this up before. This really showcases the production design in full. The bitrate is also fantastic. It starts around 80 and tops out around 100 Mbps. And the grain structure is fully intact here. Some scenes the grain does appear very heavy than other scenes, but overall we have some nice organic film grain. Alright, now let's dive into the audio presentation of this 4K UHD, and Vinegar Syndrome offers a new DTS HD lossless stereo mix that has been upgraded from the previous audio mix from the Shout Factory Blu-ray, and it's an excellent mix that complements the fantastic video quality. The audio track sounds robust with some really nice weight and punch to it. The sound effects have some nice dynamic impact during moments like the cabin explosion with some nice stereosonic depth. The film score from Ray Cooder sounds clear and dynamic and more open, and dialogue exchanges are rendered perfectly clear and precise. Alright, so I'm giving Vinegar Syndrome's 4K UHD presentation of Southern Comfort a resounding 5 out of 5. This is a huge improvement and definitely a 4K you need to upgrade to if you have the Blu-ray. If you don't have the Blu-ray, this is definitely one to pick up and add to your collection. Alright, but now here's the real test. When you look at the differences here between the Blu-ray and this new 4K UHD presentation, which do you like better? Head over to the comment section and let me know. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to the other camera and let's take a closer look of this box set. Alright, let's dive into the special features on this disc, and it does include a lot of new special features, and it is on both the 4K disc and also the Blu-ray disc. And they include a new audio commentary track with Walter Chaw, who's the author of Tragedy and Masculinity, the films of Walter Hill. This is a fantastic commentary throughout the film. It also includes a new 2024 interview with director Walter Hill. This is a fantastic, excellent interview with Walter Hill, as he talks about the making of the film and what went on. It also includes a new 2024 making of featurette with interview with the editor. This is an excellent behind-the-scenes interview about the editing of the film, and it runs about 26 minutes. If you're an editor, you're definitely going to want to check out this featurette. And we have a new 2024 interview with the costume designer, a new 2024 interview with film historian Wayne Byrne, as he goes in about the film and the legacy of director Walter Hill's films with archival interviews as well. And then we also have some legacy special features that were included on both Second Sight and Shout Factory's Blu-ray, and of course the theatrical trailer.
It's better than cocaine. Take it all in.
Alright guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me, talking about the 4K UHD presentation of Southern Comfort from Vinegar Syndrome and comparing it to this piece of garbage. As always guys, thanks so much for watching, keep physical media alive, and we'll see you next time.